Today, we're breaking down the real legal difference between drug possession and drug trafficking, and the surprising ways someone can be charged with trafficking without ever selling anything. Let's start with the basics. Drug possession usually means you had drugs on you. You knew they were there, and you had control over them. That includes drugs in your pocket, drugs in your bag, drugs in your car, drugs in your room. Even if they're not yours, the law often says you're responsible if you had control over them. Possession is serious, but compared to trafficking, it's the lesser, much lesser, charge. Here's where people get shocked. Drug trafficking does not require selling drugs, making drug money, transporting drugs, or even being part of a gang. Legally, trafficking is broad enough to include just possessing a trafficable quantity. That is, the quantity trap most people don't know about. In many places, the law sets specific thresholds. If you're caught with more than a certain amount, even if it's for personal use, the law can presume you intended to traffic. For example, a few grams might be possession, but above a certain threshold, it becomes possession for supply. For example, under U.S. federal law, possessing 100 grams of heroin triggers a trafficking charge even without other evidence of intent to sell. And that can be treated the same as trafficking. You don't need scales. You don't need baggies. You don't need messages. You don't need cash. Quantity alone can flip the charge. This is why two people caught with the same kind of drug, but of a different quantity, can face completely different penalties. Police also look at context. Even a few grams can be treated as trafficking if you happen to have with you multiple small bags, perhaps used for storing drugs, scales, perhaps used for weighing drugs, large amounts of cash, perhaps being drug sale proceeds, or messages about buying or selling drugs, perhaps through the use of coded language and symbols. These are called indicators of supply. You might think they're harmless, but legally, they can turn a possession charge into a trafficking charge instantly. Here's an everyday example. A man was caught with a relatively small amount of drugs, not enough to meet the trafficable quantity, but police found messages arranging meetups, small Ziploc bags, and a list of names and numbers, perhaps representing debts owed by drug customers or payments made to suppliers. He claimed it was all for personal use. The court didn't buy it. He was convicted of trafficking, not possession, and the sentence was dramatically higher. Intent to sell matters, and the law looks at everything. Here's why the distinction matters so much. Possession penalties can include fines, mandatory programs, community service, or short jail terms. Under U.S. federal law, first-time possession can result in up to 1 year in jail and a minimum fine of $1,000. On the other hand, trafficking penalties can include long prison sentences, mandatory minimum sentences, asset seizure, lifetime consequences. Under U.S. federal law, first-time trafficking in 400 grams or more of fentanyl carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years. The jump from possession to trafficking is massive. So here's the truth. You can be charged with drug trafficking without ever selling drugs. Quantity, packaging, messages, or even the way drugs are stored can change everything. The law doesn't just look at what you did, it looks at what it thinks you intended to do. If you want more clear, simple explanations of everyday legal issues, make sure to subscribe. I've got more real-world legal breakdowns coming your way. And tell me in the comments, did you know the law could treat possession as trafficking?